All right, everyone. We got some news to address. So about a week ago, it was made known to the public that Tesla has let go their charging department. Not the entire department, but they made a mass layoff in the charging department. And as a result, it actually negatively affects the EV industry as a whole. And there's a lot of mixed opinions and mixed emotions out in the internet right now. I was actually close to breaking my rule about not filming when I'm not in a good mental health state. Yeah, it really hit me hard as well. But finally, now that a week has passed and we've learned a few more details, ultimately, this is still bad news, okay? We're not going to get around that. This is still bad news, but I've calmed down now that I know a lot more of the details. And as a result, let's just talk about it. So to address what exactly has happened, because that's the number one thing that it seems like a lot of people just don't understand. Who was it that Tesla fired? Because some people are thinking, oh my gosh, the entire charging department is gone, which means now the supercharger network has nobody to maintain it and such. And there's a lot of people who actually can't figure out who exactly has been fired within the charging department. Here's who I know who has not. In terms of the maintenance teams for the Tesla supercharger network, because that is our number one fear about this whole thing, none of the people on the maintenance team has been fired. All of the maintenance teams are still there. All the maintenance people who drive around the country and keep superchargers up and running, they're not gone. They're actually still there. So in terms of upkeep and maintaining reliability of the supercharger network, I don't think we're going to see a, massive decrease in terms of supercharger reliability, at least in the short term. And the only reasons why I think you could see a decrease in reliability in the long term is for factors outside of the maintenance teams of the supercharger network. Don't be completely afraid that, oh my gosh, superchargers are now going to become unreliable because there's no one to maintain these things. Just like when it comes to ChargePoint and Electrify America. Yep, they basically have whatever maintenance team they have is so small that they just don't care about maintaining their chargers in a timely fashion. Tesla still has their maintenance team. They also still have their teams in charge of producing chargers, okay? Their charger production team is still there. The people who have been fired are the people in charge of developing new superchargers and also developing new sites and expanding the network. These are the people who are gone. The people who are in charge of expanding the network and bringing new sites online. If I recall, they're also in charge of upgrading some sites. And again, this is where we're going to get into some more confusion. But these are the people who are gone. It's the people in charge of expanding the network and developing the superchargers. At least, I'll be honest. I think they were also in charge of developing the superchargers, and the reason for that is going to, be explained in a little bit. The number one thing that a lot of people are upset about is Tesla is basically not going to expand their network. In fact, Elon has been public about this. He says that he's going to slow down the expansion of the network. I mean, it's obvious because he's basically fired literally the entire team who works on that. And his reasoning for that is, the supercharger network is big enough. I mean, technically you can't go anywhere in the country. And guess what? He's not entirely wrong, but there is a big asterisk to that statement. See, here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, our charging infrastructure up here happens to really suck in terms of supercharger locations. My closest Tesla supercharger is 2 hours away in Marquette. That's 100 miles from here. And a common trip that I happen to do is from where I live here in the Keweenaw Peninsula to Petoskey, Michigan, where my family has a lake house that we like to vacation there sometimes. Meaning we have to travel across the UP. Now, I've actually done a road trip video where I happen to have stopped at both of the charging stations, the only two charging stations en route from the Keweenaw Peninsula to Petoskey, being the Marquette Supercharger and the Mackinac City Supercharger. In between those two superchargers, there is literally nothing. There's not another supercharger, but even superchargers aside, there's not even another third-party charger. There's no ChargePoint station. There's no Electrify America. There's not even an NLX, which you see a lot of up here in the UP actually. Between Marquette and Mackinac City, there are no charging stations. Zero. Zelch. So, because of that, we need to make sure that we have decent range electric cars when we actually do that. But a big reason why I complain that I need to have the long range Tesla and I can't get by with the standard range is because, here in Upper Michigan, it gets pretty freaking cold. And so when that drive needs to be done in the winter, well, guess what? It's about a 200-mile stretch from Marquette to Mackinac City. Again, no chargers in between. And when it's cold outside, that means the car is going to operate less efficiently. And then also, you're trying to heat the cabin, you're trying to stay warm. 200 miles starts to become an insane ask. And so that is the biggest thing that really irks me when it comes to slowing down the expansion rate of the supercharger network. Seriously, all we would have needed is just one charger in Munising or Seney. That's it. Just give me a charger in Munising and Seney. We're good to go. I can make it from here in the Keweenaw Peninsula to Petoskey in a Tesla in the wintertime. I can make this trip easily in the summer, but I can't do it easily in the wintertime. It's insanely difficult. And unfortunately, gaps like these, they exist in many other places in the country as well. The Dakotas, Montana, and there's many other open spots that we can think of. And as a result, yeah, it's upset a lot of people. And I am affected by this too, by the way. Again, my closest station is 100 miles away from me, be it in Marquette or Minocqua, Wisconsin. That's where I gotta go to get to a Tesla supercharger. I get the frustration about that. And instead, what he's going to focus on, instead of, well, expanding the network, which would really help out the rural areas like where I am, he's going to focus on upgrading existing sites. Like, for the most part, it sounds like they're going to do a lot of retrofitting in terms of ripping version 2s out and maybe putting in version 3s, or what I'd rather, version 4s. Oh wait, but we haven't seen a version 4 charger yet. Where is that, Tesla? Oh yeah, that's another problem that you caused when you fired basically the charging development team. How is V4 development supposed to happen? Because we have yet to see a V4 supercharger yet. Okay, we have the dispensers, yes, but we don't actually have the actual V4 charging cabinets. Those current V4 dispensers are actually hooked up to V3 cabinets, meaning they are limited to 500 volt output and up to 250 kilowatts. Keep in mind, 500 volts is not enough to charge the Cybertruck at its native voltage, and that's wild to me. But Tesla drivers aren't the only ones who are affected. Do you happen to own an electric vehicle that has this charging port here and charges via this standard? You probably know that road tripping that thing right now really sucks, unless you drive a Ford or a Rivian, because congratulations, you guys have access to superchargers now. And we were hoping that this would be the case with other brands in the future, and this is still TBD. I mean, supposedly GM is right around the corner in terms of getting supercharger access, but once again, without that team that they were talking to in terms of development, I'm pretty sure this team also develops the software for the superchargers as well. How are these vehicles supposed to gain access to the supercharger network? Yeah, this is a bit of a problem in the industry. In fact, actually, it has affected negatively a couple automotive brands who were on board with the NACS transition. I've heard rumors that there's a German automaker who is considering putting this back in the cards. They were going to switch to NACS, but now that they've lost their communication with Tesla because they fired their charging department, how do they switch to NACS now? I guess they can't. So if that's the case, then I guess just go back to charging via this clunky, difficult to use standard. Yeah, they think this is the solution. You know, I've been advocating on this channel for a long time that we should have been using this as our charging standard from day one. And yes, I know that's not what happened. We have history to thank for that. And I was so excited to see that we were all finally agreeing to use a good charging standard, because I know CCS is not responsible for the majority of poor charging experiences out there, but CCS as a connector design is just bad in general compared to this. This is obviously a much better connector, capable of double the power of CCS, much more secure in the vehicle, much safer to use, might I add. Also, it's cheaper to integrate in the vehicle compared to CCS, which I thought cost cutting is a major thing that every automaker wants to do. And if using a better connector that's cheaper, well, is on the table, then take that, maybe? So yeah, we all thought that we finally agreed to use the best charging standard here in North America, except evidently no. That's now in question, which really sucks. And speaking of communication, it also appears that Tesla has burned some bridges when it comes to communicating with utilities and contractors who are actually in charge of digging up the land and putting in transformers and getting the power to that area where they want that site to be. Well, it seems like Tesla burned a few bridges because of this, because now all these people, they can't communicate with the charging department because there is no charging department. So as a result, it's causing a bit of a nightmare in terms of putting in new sites anyways, which again, if Elon wants to upgrade these sites, they have to be in communication with contractors and utilities. They don't have those communications anyways. So how is he even supposed to upgrade existing supercharging sites? That is something that just doesn't make sense to me. There are some silver linings that some people have tried to come up with, but I'm dead serious. I don't see how there is a bright side to this. Many people will say, well, okay, Tesla had some amazing people in their charging department that now are without a job. Well, now Electrify America or Iona or ChargePoint, they can now sweep these people up and start building out their networks with these experienced people who are in charge of building the most reliable charging network here in the nation. Well, I hate to say this, guys, but are you aware of the definition of insanity? Insanity is basically where you attempt to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. See, we have tried to give these third-party charge point operators more money. Has it yield better results? No. We've even had more experienced people come in supposedly to these third-party operators. And does it yield better results? No. So now that once again we have experienced people looking for a job now, and should they get swooped up by these other third-party charging networks, do you really expect we're going to see a different result? Do you really think that now these third-party operators are actually going to start profiting and also giving their drivers and customers a better experience? I don't think so. If you do, I think you're insane. No offense, but I think you're insane, because we've tried adding more money and more experience into these networks before, and we continue to see the same thing time and time again. And so, okay, adding more experienced people to these networks, I don't trust we're going to get a different result. I think you're insane to think we're going to get a different result. Yeah, that means this is not going to help third-party networks at all. And if anything, Tesla growing the supercharger network, and for a short period, I know this sounds dangerous, but please hear me out. I know the idea of Tesla becoming a monopoly in the charging space is bad. It is ultimately bad. Tesla should not be a monopoly in the charging space. But here's why I think they should be a monopoly in the charging space for a short period of time. For the longest time, third-party charging operators have never competed with Tesla. All of the EV drivers who were using them were forced to use them because they did not have access to the most reliable charging network in the nation. And as a result, that did not incentivize all these other third-party charging operators to improve. They didn't have to, because they didn't compete with Tesla. But because, at least for a while, we thought that, okay, we've all agreed to use the same charging port, the NACS port, well, that's the charging port Tesla's superchargers use, and because Tesla was opening up the network, well, now all of a sudden these third-party operators, now they do compete with Tesla. And because now they compete with Tesla, the EV drivers now get to consider, okay, do I want the bad experience that these third-party operators are going to continue to give me, or should I go to Tesla, where I am usually at least guaranteed a relatively positive experience? Most people are probably going to pick Tesla if they have half a brain. And because of that, Tesla is definitely going to grow in terms of network utilization. And if these third-party networks really want to keep their customer base with them and not die, then they'd actually have to start upping their A game and compete with Tesla. They have to start focusing on maintaining the chargers, and they have to start focusing on putting in reliable equipment that is also relatively high power. But now Tesla kind of just stopped. We're probably not going to get any new sites in the ground anytime soon, especially for these voids that we want chargers to be filled in. Like, for example, between Marquette and Mackinac City, for me, that's a big void that I wish was filled in. Oh, also, how about here in the Keweenaw Peninsula? Yeah, in order to charge a Tesla up here, there's no Tesla charging stations. You have to go to the ChargePoint station in town and use an adapter. So yeah, there are some very big gaps that still have yet to be filled, and I don't think those are being filled in anytime soon. And the network still needs to expand. This is another argument that a lot of people have come up with. Tesla's done with their job. They don't need to build out any more chargers. They're basically done with their job. I'd argue no. Currently right now, EVs are still a small subset of vehicles sold here in North America. Gas cars are still the most popular sales here in North America. Yeah, EVs had their sales spikes. We're at a bit of a dip right now, but the point is, I expect EV adoption to continue to grow and grow the more people actually get past the whole FUD about these things and learn just how great these vehicles are. But without a charging network to support it, it is not going to help their case. And unfortunately, Tesla's job still isn't done. We still have gaps in the nation that need to be filled, and we still need to get every other automaker compatible with the supercharger network. Their job still isn't done. Okay, I don't know where Tesla's job is done. They don't need to fuel the charging industry anymore. No, their job is not done. They still have a lot of work to do, and I am not happy that they dropped the ball. And because now they dropped the ball, well, just third-party chargers don't have to try hard anymore. Because why do you have to when the guy in first place is basically sitting on the side of the road taking a nap? There's no need to try. Why try? And now, ultimately, the final section of this video that I want to address. Why did this happen? Okay, ultimately, this is bad for everyone. This is bad for automakers. This is bad for EV consumers. This is bad for charging operators. This is bad for everybody. The only people that this is actually good for are the gas car enthusiasts who want electric cars to die. This is the only thing it's good for. But why did Tesla do this? Why did Elon do this? I actually think it has something to do with Elon's obsession in terms of trying to get robo taxis out on the market. He has this a vision where we all are going to sell our cars. We're going to get rid of car ownership here in America, and we're all going to be taking robo taxis. Now, from the self-driving standpoint, I think it's possible that we'll get there. But here's the fundamental problem that I think Elon is just completely ignoring. It's not the robo part I have an issue with. Well, that has its own set of issues, by the way. From a fundamental standpoint, it's not the robo part I have an issue with. It's the taxi part that I have an issue with. Public transportation is just not strong here in North America. The only places where it is strong are the big cities. That's where you'll find the buses. That's where you'll find subways. That's where you'll find taxis. And that's probably where you're going to find the majority of people calling for Ubers and Lyfts. But here out in the sticks, in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, nobody takes public transportation up here. The only public transportation we really have up here are the people in nursing homes. So the old people can go shopping or to church or maybe visit some family nearby or something like that. It's for the people in nursing homes or the shuttle bus that gets people from the university to Walmart. That's it. We do technically have a taxi cab and a Lyft driver up here, but I have a feeling they go extremely underutilized. The majority of people around here, we own our cars, and I don't think we have any interest in terms of selling them and inconveniencing ourselves to have to wait for a taxi, be it human driver or robo. I personally don't want to wait an extra 15 minutes for a taxi to show up at my house to get to work and then have to wait another 15 minutes for the taxi to show up and then take me back. I don't want to wait like that. That's just not how our society here in North America is set up. It's more convenient for us to own our cars. And this is not the case in big cities, okay? But the majority of North America is not big cities. A lot of it is small suburban towns. Nothing near the sheer scale of New York or Chicago or Denver or Atlanta or Los Angeles or San Francisco. Big cities like that are really the exception here in North America. For the most part, our communities are so much smaller. Our population density is so much smaller, and it's just not convenient for us to not own a car, unlike in the big cities. That is the issue I have with Elon's obsession of robo-taxis. This will work well in the big cities. This will also work well in Europe because they have a much higher dependence on public transportation. But here in the rest of North America, in rural North America, no, it's basically not even going to make a big dent. Ultimately, he's chasing a dream, and I never said that I fully agreed with everything Elon does. I don't completely like the guy, but I don't completely hate him either. It really is a mixed bag. This is one of the things that I don't like about him. He's now chasing a dream that would work well in the cities, but in order for it to work, we have to have a massive culture shift here in North America. And not only a massive culture shift, we need to have a massive city infrastructure shift in order for it to work. And that's just not how we're set up here. A massive city infrastructure shift would involve basically tearing down our communities as they are right now and completely rebuilding them in a completely different fashion. That is going to cost gazillions of dollars to do. So I don't think Elon's dream of robo-taxis is going anywhere. I think that's why he's gotten rid of people at the charging department. It's that way he can reallocate more resources to help with the robo-taxi development. And ultimately, we're not in a good spot. So if you ever have thought that the EV is going to be in trouble and EVs are going to die, this is for once, actual reasonable news that could potentially fill that. For once, we actually thought that our charging infrastructure solves were going to be solved. The supercharger network today is still usable. It's not perfect because in big cities, it still has congestion issues. But that's because we need to get people off of DC chargers in the big cities. And we need to get more public AC chargers on the street, in parking garages, and in rental homes. It is a problem. But in terms of the DC charging space, yeah, it's not good. None of this is good. This is all bad, okay? I'm going to admit that. This is all bad. This sucks. All right, that's what I have to say on the matter. Feel free to let me know about your thoughts and opinions about this whole thing in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.